Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hi Jason, I currently compete in IPF at 93 kilos. My comp lifts are 230 squat, 160 bench, 227.5 deadlift. My question is, can I make decent progress just doing just the comp lifts, i.e. no accessories, and playing around with volume and intensity? Thanks in advance. You start looking at your lifts. Look at your body weight. Look at where your lifts are. Look at things like your squat to deadlift ratio. Okay. I think you have approached a pretty good chunk of your natural limits. Not saying you're there yet, but you've gotten pretty close, right? You've gotten pretty close, and a lot of that we can base upon look at your strength ratios versus your body weight, particularly the benching. Look at the fact that you're squatting now a hair more than you deadlift. Now, that could probably be attributed to, again, maybe not particularly lean. Could be attributed to the knee sleeves giving you carryover, everything else. But there could be a lot of factors there on that ratio. One of them tells us that you've probably put a lot of muscle on your lower body. Okay, a lot of muscle on the lower body. I think you're lacking a little bit of back, to be honest. So let's kind of come over to that point. Why am I going there with all this? You're at a point where gaining muscle is going to be a precious commodity. Gaining any muscle that you can gain is going to help you get better. Now, it's also obvious looking at those ratios that some of your back may be your weakest link. What you're doing now as far as just these lifts is not working. You need to bring your back up. You need accessory work for that. Okay? You need that. You need that in your training. The other thing to think about is what? Injury prevention. Problem with minimalist type training like you're recommending, I'm not saying it can't work. Like, I'm not saying that it's ideal for gaining size, because it isn't. But as far as just peaking and just doing nothing but essentially 3 or 4 exercises and getting really, really good at them and trying to maximize the muscle involved with those, it can work, and there are guys in powerlifting who successfully do that. They also tend to have higher injury rates. And one of the reasons I've always said that this type of minimalist training, one of the big issues with it, is not that you can't get strong doing it. It's that it doesn't maximize muscular balance. And when we fail to do that, we get hurt easier in the long term. Hey, you're also going to be much, much, much more subject to overuse injuries. You need to be rotating movement patterns to some extent no matter what you do. Otherwise, you are number one, not going to maximize your body composition, which again comes back to number two, less support musculature to prevent injuries. You would much rather have those last few kilos be pounds, or sorry, a little tongue-tied, it's early in the morning here. You would much rather have those be muscle than fat as far as squeezing into your weight class. You're better off for it. Okay, maximizing your muscle mass, and then it comes over to overuse injuries. That's a concern there. But I can already tell you, looking at these ratios, I think you need more upper and mid back. I think you need it. I think it would help you a lot. And that's only going to be done with accessory work. All right, next question. I do sprints after each of my 4 training sessions per week, usually alternate between 100 meters, 200 meters, usually 4 to 10 reps. What's your take on this as part of GPP? In terms of GPP, I'm trying to add a light, steady state cardio so that I'm prepared to use all 3 energy systems. Jogging to me is relaxing, but it takes days to recover. I'm considering buying a bike from my gym, easy on joints, not too taxing on my muscles, easy to zone in and out, no audiobook, elevated heart rate. I'd like your feedback on this. Okay, here's my take with steady state cardio. You need to be careful how you implement it. Obviously, let's come over to the point. If you're going to actually try to be a jogger, if you're going to try to be a jogger and you're going to try to lift, you need to hire a coach. And you don't need me. You need to go hire someone who specializes in this. Jogging beats your body up. And I don't know why people have this idea. And I always see that, and people will say, oh, you're so against running. You're so against running. It's just part of normal fitness. No, it really isn't. It's actually pretty hard on your body. And if you're trying to do other things with it, you better know what you're doing, because it beats you up. It absolutely beats you up. And as you get to be an older lifter, I'm going to recommend you don't take up any form of running without hiring a coach to go with all your other training and lifting. Just don't do it. People talk about lifting being risky. No, running, much higher risk of injuries running. Okay, you're more likely to have recovery issues, overuse problems, injuries, strains than you are getting in and even training for powerlifting, in my experience. So I agree with you on getting the bike. Well, here's my thing. Like with everything else, you're going to have to program it carefully. And in my life experience, my experience talking to good coaches, not people in the goofy bodybuilding world, if you go in a calorie deficit later, you need to get rid of that less cardio. Be very, very careful of it. It tends to cost you a lot of muscle if you use it to create a calorie deficit. It's actually fine if you're eating enough. If you're re-eating the calories back that you're burning during the list and you're doing it just for health purposes, you're doing it for, again, your energy systems to build endurance to get some benefits out of it, it's fine because you're eating the fuel to fuel the training and recover from it. It's a terrible fat loss tool. It doesn't matter how many guys you know on Tren who do it, because that's a different situation. They're in a different hormonal environment. Okay, they're in a different hormonal environment. But as far as just adding it in, well, are you eating enough to recover from all of it? Are you sleeping enough to recover from all of what you're doing? Are you adding it in gradually? Probably be fine for just general health purposes to get some higher intensity conditioning work in. And like I said, I do sled drags and other stuff for that. Okay, you want to get that in, that's fine. You want to get a little bit of listen, that's fine. Don't overdo the lists. Be very, very careful of overdoing it. Make sure that you're re-eating the calories. Okay, you start losing weight while doing all of this, and you may actually find that your muscle mass and strength suffers. So it's a matter of what it is that you're trying to do with it. All right, next question. What's the difference between standing and seated good mornings? Well, on one of them you're standing and on the other one you're seated. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that. Okay, I'm kidding. What's the difference? Well, besides the obvious that you're standing and seated, if you're seated, you're using less lower body. Okay. A seated good morning is a supplemental lift and a variation of the good morning that you use for the purpose of building almost purely upper back, because you can't work your hamstrings and glutes to the same degree when you're seated on a bench with your legs spread out. Right? It's very similar to how you're up there on a box squat, and it becomes almost exclusively a back movement. And that's what I always point out to people. The good morning, even though I say that the standard good morning or the power good morning trains your squat, right? It's the same movement patterns as a squat, but with less knee flexion. Okay, same movement. And it's base format. But the good morning is a very, very, very high variation exercise. It's a very versatile tool. Okay, because there are easily a dozen different types of good mornings that you can come up with to address different muscles and different performance elements. Because essentially, let's step back instead of thinking of the good morning as just what we're doing as a classic good morning oftentimes, and think of it as the fact that a good morning is just a hip hinge with the bar sitting on your back. Okay, just like with a squat. People say the squat. Well, there's a lot of types of squats. A good morning's the same way. They're different tools, and it has a lot of variation available. All a good morning really means is that we're doing a hip hinge with a bar in a squat position. Okay, the hip hinge. In this case, you're doing it seated and putting more emphasis on your upper and middle back, because it's having to do all the work, because everything else is a little more stationary. You can't get that extra hip drive, leg drive in it. You start largely removing the glutes from the equation. They just can't do as much. So it would be the variation of the good morning, depending again on which bar you use. It's even more pronounced with the safety squat bar, to where you would do purely to work on that weak link at the exclusion of the other normal muscles involved. Okay, it's a smaller, stricter version of the good morning for a specialized purpose. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that everyone should do it just because they have an upper back weakness. Matter of how you want to balance all your programming out, really. Okay, So hopefully that explains it. It's just one of the variations, and it's a specialized version of the good morning for very specific weak point training. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.